My name is Sarah Whitman. I'm a lieutenant in the U.S. Army. I don't expect anyone to believe this story, but honestly I don't care. I wouldn't have believed it myself, until it happened to me. I've always been a rational person. I don't entertain thoughts about the supernatural or anything that can't be explained by logic and science. Ghost stories, demons, spirits, they're just tales to me. But what I experienced during my deployment in Iraq still keeps me awake at night. It was 2014, and we were stationed near Mosul. The war was nearing its end, and I was counting the days until I could go home. Every day weighed heavier on me than the last, and I wanted nothing more than to leave it all behind. In Iraq, people have a deep belief in Djinn. They're not just part of folklore. They're woven into daily life. Everyone seemed to have a story about them. People stumbling upon Djinn weddings, humans marrying Djinn, or Djinn falling in love with beautiful women. I thought it was all nonsense. I would politely smile and nod whenever someone shared these tales, but I didn't take any of it seriously. Not until one fateful night. One day, during a mission in a nearby village, I saved a young boy from crossfire. His family was overwhelmingly grateful and insisted I come to their home for dinner. At first I hesitated, but their gratitude was genuine, and I couldn't say no. The meal was simple but warm, and the family's hospitality was humbling. After dinner, we gathered around their small stove for tea. That's when the conversation turned to Djinn. The boy's father, Hamid, began speaking in a low, serious tone. "This land is not just ours," he said. "The Djinn were here long before us. They have their own rules, their own lives." "What kind of rules?" I asked, curious but skeptical. Hamid leaned in closer. "There are places we do not go, times of night we do not wander. The Djinn hold weddings much like us. If you come across one, you must leave immediately. And if a Djinn falls in love with you, they will do anything to make you theirs." His wife, Layla, nodded solemnly. "When a Djinn marries a human, they leave a mark. Sometimes it's kohl around the eyes, or henna on the skin. It's their way of binding you to them." I couldn't help but laugh. "Surely, you don't actually believe this?" I said. But their faces remained deadly serious. "Belief is not necessary," Hamid said, his voice almost a whisper. "They exist whether you accept them or not." Later that night, I began the walk back to the base. It was a quiet, moonless night, and the roads were deserted. The only sounds were my boots crunching against the dirt and the occasional howl of the wind. That's when I saw them, flickering lights in the distance. At first, I thought they were just lanterns or maybe the headlights of a far-off vehicle. But as I kept walking, the lights didn't move or disappear. Instead, they seemed to hover, inviting me closer. Curiosity got the better of me, and I followed them. As I approached, I realized they weren't coming from any village or camp. It was an empty clearing, but there were people, no, not people, dancing around a fire. They were small, hunched figures with oddly shaped bodies. Their feet were backward, their movements impossibly graceful, and their humming filled the air with an unnatural vibration. My heart raced as I watched them. Hamid's words echoed in my mind. "If you stumble upon a Djinn wedding, leave immediately." I tried to back away, but one of them noticed me. Its glowing ember-like eyes locked onto mine. Then the humming stopped. One by one they all turned to look at me. Their fiery eyes burned into my soul. Panic set in. My instincts screamed at me to raise my weapon. But firing shots in the dead of night could jeopardize the fragile peace we'd worked so hard to maintain. Instead, I ran faster than I'd ever run before. The sound of my own breath drowning out everything else. When I reached the base, I was shaking and drenched in sweat. I didn't tell anyone what I'd seen. It was just a hallucination, I told myself. Just exhaustion. The next morning, I woke feeling as though I hadn't slept at all. My body was heavy, my mind clouded. As I dressed, I noticed something strange. An orange stain on my ankle. It looked like henna, but I had no memory of applying it. I tried scrubbing it off, but it wouldn't budge. I convinced myself it was nothing and went about my day. The following morning brought another shock. After a quick shower, I realized my hair had been braided. Not neatly as I would have done it, but crudely, like someone or something had yanked it into messy plaits. Fear crept into my mind. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I returned to Hamid's home and told them everything. Layla's face went pale as she listened. "You saw them," she said. "The Djinn." Hamid nodded grimly. "One of them saw you. It marked you." The orange stain is their wedding seal. Now they visit you every night and take you into their world. I shook my head. That's impossible. I don't believe in this. Layla grabbed my hand. It doesn't matter if you believe. He believes. And he won't let you go. Months later, I returned to the US, desperate to leave everything behind. But the mark followed me. Every time I tried to start a relationship, it failed. Men avoided me, often making up excuses to leave. Eventually, I consulted a scholar who specialized in Middle Eastern folklore. His verdict chilled me. The Djinn has claimed you, he said. He won't let anyone else have you. He makes you undesirable to others. Unless you break the bond, you will remain his bride. I asked, how do I break it? He shook his head. It's almost impossible. Djinn are stubborn and vengeful. The bond can only be broken with their permission, or by someone with greater power. To this day I search for answers. My nights are restless, haunted by fiery eyes and strange whispers. The orange mark on my ankle remains, a constant reminder of the night I stumbled into the Djinn's world. And somewhere out there my unseen husband waits, watching, ensuring I never forget that I belong to him. If you know of any solution for break this curse, please let me know. I would be grateful to you.